Amiano, Atkins, Bell, Berryhill, Block, Blumenfield, Bonilla, Bradford, Brownlee, Buchanan, Butler, Calderon, Campos, Carter, Cedillo, Chesbro, Conway, Cook, Davis, Dickinson, Donnelly, Ing, Fior, Fletcher, Fong, Fuentes, Furutani, Gaines, Galgiani, Garrick, Gatto, Gordon, Gorell, Grove, Hagman, Halderman, Hall, Harkey, Hayashi, Hernandez, Hill, Huber, Weso, Huffman, Jeffries, Jones, Knight, Lara, Logue, Lowenthal, Ma, Mansour, Mendoza, Miller, Mitchell, Monning, Morel, Nestande, Nilsson, Norby, Olson, Pan, Perea, V. Manuel Perez, Portantino, Silva, Skinner, Smythe, Solorio, Swanson, Torres, Valadeo, Wagner, Wykowski, Williams, Yamada, Mr. Speaker.
The sergeants will call on the absent members. A quorum is present. We ask our guests and visitors in the rear of chambers and in the gallery to please stand for the prayer. We ask our guest chaplain, Reverend Janice Still of Imani Community Church of Sacramento, to offer the day's prayer.
Amazing Creator, who created humanity as one people, come among us now to reunify us. We confess that we have built cities for ourselves and sought fame and fortune. Sometimes we rush through our days with unseeing eyes, stopped up ears, and dulled emotions. We confess that there are times when we are enslaved by our fears than freed by your grace. And we demand proof of your existence, but ignore the work of your hands. During this time of pride, celebration, and reflections, we confess that we have unanswered questions that sometimes misguide our steps and cause our faith to waver. We even confess that sometimes your spirit is unreal to us because we insist on being in charge. Out of our differences, create understanding and eagerness to explore your spirit among us. Out of narrowness, fashion a breath of involvement to feed our spirits. May we dream dreams and see visions. May we truly hear our sisters and brothers and respond to them in the spirit of unity, with empathy and love. Help us and save us from ourselves. In your many names we pray. Ashe and Amen.
Amen. We ask our guests and visitors to remain standing and join us in the pledge, led by Assemblymember Lara. You may be seated. Reading of the previous day's journal.
Assembly Chamber, Sacramento, Thursday, June 16, 2011. Assembly met at 9 Honorable Fiona Moss, Speaker Pro Tem of the Assembly, Presiding Chief Carnegie Dawson Wilson at the desk. Reading Clark Timothy Moreland. Reading. The roll was called.
Mr. Allen moves. Mr. Hagman seconds that the reading of the previous day's journal be dispensed with. Presentations and petitions. There are none. Introductions and references of bills will be deferred. Reports of committees will be deemed read and amendments deemed adopted. Messages from the governor. There are none. Messages from the Senate. There are none. Motions and resolutions. The absences for the day's journal will be deemed read and printed in the journal. Mr. Allen, you are recognized.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. I request unanimous consent to suspend Assembly Rule 118 to allow Assemblymember Amiano to have guests and photographers at the rostrum and on the floor for today's special ceremony.
Without objection.
Pursuant to Assembly Rule 96, I request unanimous consent to refer bills to committee. SB 173 from the Health Committee to the Business, Professions, and Consumer Protection Committee and then back to the Health Committee.
Without objection.
SB 939 from the Governmental Organization Committee to the Rules Committee.
Without objection.
Please remove file item 36, SB 723 from the consent calendar, and pursuant to Assembly Rule 97, I request unanimous consent to re-refer SB 723 to the Appropriations Committee.
Without objection.
I request unanimous consent to suspend Assembly Rule 56 so that the Local Government Committee can notice SB 267 Rubio and SB 551 DeSaulnier for hearing on Wednesday, June 29th, pending re-referral of the bills from the Parks and Wildlife Committee to the Natural Resources Committee.
Without objection. Without objection, we will move to file item 14, H.R. 15, Amiano. The clerk will read.
House Resolution 15 by Assemblymember Amiano relative to Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, and Transgender Pride Month.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I'm proud to be bringing you today House Resolution 15, proclaiming June 2011 as Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, and Transgender Pride Month. The month of June marks the anniversary of the Stonewall Rebellion that gave birth to the modern lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender civil rights movement. Pride Month commemorates lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender Americans, their families and friends, and all those committed to justice and equality. H.R. 15 recognizes that lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people have made important and lasting contributions to California and the nation in every field of endeavor, including business, medicine, law, humanities, science, literature, politics, education, music, philanthropy, sports, arts, and culture that enrich our national life. H.R. 15 urges all residents to join in celebrating the culture, accomplishments, and contributions of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people, and encourages the people of California to work to help advance the cause of equality for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people and their families. This year will mark the 11th year this legislature has passed an LGBT Pride Month resolution sponsored by the members of the LGBT Legislative Caucus. All of our ethnic culture-based caucuses sponsored a Heritage Month and a related resolution. Every other heritage-related resolution has received wide bipartisan support, and we hope this resolution will also. Thank you, and I ask you for your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Amiano. Mr. Furutani.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker and members. As chair of the Asian Pacific Islander Legislative Caucus, I rise in support of H.R. 15 establishing the LGBT Pride Month. The LGBT community and the API community have had similar histories regarding things like the inability to marry or to legally marry. In our day of history, issues like anti-miscegenation laws where Asian Pacific Islanders could not marry Caucasians was an issue where people were separated until actually 1967 with the ruling of a Supreme Court case, Loving versus Virginia. But more than that, the LGBT community is a part of the Asian Pacific Islander community. Our parents, our sisters and brothers, aunts and uncles, relatives, dearest friends, they are all a part of the Asian Pacific Islander community. We embrace them, we honor them, and I think this month of June is an opportunity to look at contributions in history and culture is really important relative to not only LGBT, but the fact that the LGBT community is a part of all of our communities. So it's clearly, for me, this sends a message, an important message to the state of California that this community is not a community that's marginalized, put on the sidelines relative to other communities and ethnic groups. This is fully a part of, not only an equal member, but intrinsically a part of all of our communities. I stand and urge and I vote for H.R. 15. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Furutani. Mr. Swanson.
Mr. Speaker, first of all, let me thank my colleague, Mr. Amiano, for this resolution. Inclusion, diversity, and equality. It is time for us to again acknowledge that this is a celebration that we all should join in on. I believe that this Pride Month symbolizes the fact that this is the issue of civil rights for our generation, and I join all of you in supporting this resolution. What a wonderful cause and a wonderful statement for this chamber to make.
Thank you, Mr. Swanson. Mr. Mendoza.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, it's a pleasure to rise in support of H.R. 15. I stand not only as the chair of the Latino Caucus, but as a father who has taught his children the importance of valuing and respecting one another, regardless of race, religion, gender identity, or sexual orientation. As a nation, we must continue to have an open dialogue about the issues and topics important to our communities. However, an open dialogue is only a first step. There is still much more work that needs to be done to ensure that the equality for the LGBT community, but not only in our state, but in our nation. I thank the author for bringing forward this important resolution that celebrates LGBT Pride Month and for being a leader in the LGBT community. Thank you all, and I respectfully ask for an aye vote and support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mendoza. Mr. Davis.
Mr. Speaker and members, as the Vice Chair of the California Legislative Black Caucus, we rise in support of H.R. 15 and urge the support of the legislature, and also want to say that the laws of the United States of America are certainly clear that all men are created equal, and for that reason we support H.R. 15.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Mr. Amiano, you may close.
Thank you very much, colleagues, for your kind and supportive words. They always say it takes a village. Of course, in San Francisco, it takes the village people. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing and hearing no further debate, the first roll is open for co-authors. First roll is for co-authors. Clerk will post. First roll is for co-authors, members. Close the roll. 44 co-authors. We will now move on to a roll call vote on the resolution. All in favor saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. No. Motion carries. We will now move to observance of LGBT Pride Month. We will hear remarks from Mr. Amiano at his desk. Mr. Amiano.
Thank you very much. Pride Month is not only a time for celebrating our vibrant LGBT community, but also for recognizing important cultural and historical figures from our community. Today you will meet some extraordinary members of the LGBT community who every day of their personal and professional lives walk the walk of equality. The work that our honorees do in our communities is vast, from serving our country's armed forces to providing HIV services for transgender communities, from fighting for love across the ocean to ensure health care access for the undeserved, activists, artists, professionals, mothers, sons, sisters, from standing up to the bullies to make sure that no other young person has to feel alone. It comes to no surprise to those of us in the community that LGBT youth suicide is statistically higher than for any other subset of people. Many of our honorees are working diligently to create safer schools and communities to combat the numerous senseless deaths of young people who are harassed to the point of taking their own lives. I would like to introduce you now to a special guest of mine at the rear of the chambers, Mr. David McFarland. He's the interim executive director of the Trevor Project. If you would stand, Mr. McFarland, welcome. The Trevor Project. The Trevor Project is an organization that has been providing suicide prevention services to LGBT youth since 1998. Most importantly, the Trevor Project runs the only 24-hour, 7 days a week LGBT youth crisis line in the nation. I commend the Trevor Project for the work they are doing in our community to save the lives of thousands of young people. We are a passionate and diverse community, and we honor these contributions today and contributors. Please take the time to identify and acknowledge LGBT community members in your district that deserve recognition. Together we can truly achieve a day when none of us are judged by the color of our skin, the church we choose to worship, the gender we live, or the person we love. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Amiano. We will now have a performance by vocalist Joshua Clipp of San Francisco. Mr. Clipp will be performing The Way You Look Tonight.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for letting me do this. Thank you, Tom. Someday, when I'm awfully low and the world is cold, I will feel a glow just thinking of you and the way you look tonight. Oh, but you're lovely with your smile so warm and your cheeks so soft. There is nothing for me but to love you just the way you look tonight. With each word your tenderness grows, tearing my fear apart. And that laugh that wrinkles your nose touches my foolish heart. Lovely, never, never change. Keep that breathless charm. Won't you please arrange it? 'Cause I love you just the way you look tonight. So I'm here representing the transgender community today. And I sing this song at a lot of community events because I think people don't hear enough that they're perfect just the way that they are. So I like to give that message out in my jazz. And shame on anyone who said nay. Just gonna say that. Because this is a beautiful, beautiful community we have here. My name is Josh Clipp. And thank you to all of you who said yes. And thank you to all of the diverse support that we got for this, for Tom's, I don't even know what it's called. Thank you. I feel like singing along. I mean, come on. You all know the words. Someday, when I'm awfully low and the world is cold, I will feel a glow just thinking of you and the way you look tonight. Oh, but you're lovely with your smile so warm and your cheeks so soft. There is nothing for me but to love you just the way you look tonight. With each word your tenderness grows, tearing my fear apart. These guys are like, what? And that laugh that wrinkles your nose touches my foolish heart. Lovely, never, never change. Keep that breathless charm. Won't you please arrange it? 'Cause I love you just the way you look tonight. Just the way you look tonight. Thank you for having me. Thank you for celebrating Pride Month.
I ask Assembly Speaker John A. Perez, LGBT Caucus Chair, and Special Guest Senator Christine Kehoe, and Assembly Member Tom Amiano, the past LGBT Caucus Chair, to move to the center aisle to receive the honorees. I'm appointing a special committee on escort to bring our special guests onto the floor for a presentation. Please retire to the rear of the chamber at the appropriate time to escort your honorees. Assembly members Atkins, Block, Bonilla, Brownlee, Campos, Galgiani, Gordon, Hill, Hueso, Lara, Mitchell, Pan, Swanson, Torres, Yamada, and special guest Senator Mark Leno. Our first honoree is Ingrid Cedeno. She is unable to attend today's ceremony. Accepting on her behalf is Irina Saigeda, her counselor at Herbert Hoover High School. She would be escorted by Assembly members Block and Campos. Clerk will read.
Ingrid Cedino is a senior at Herbert Hoover High in San Diego and president of the school's Gay Straight Alliance. She sought a high-profile role in the club to be better able to offer support to other students and staff. Ingrid learned that gay students who are harassed attend school less frequently and some drop out. During her tenure as president, her goal was to provide a safe environment where students could be accepted and also come to accept themselves. She is strongly committed to gaining acceptance of LGBT individuals and of equal rights. Welcome, Ingrid Cedino.
Our second honoree is Alfred Urquieta. He will be escorted by Assembly members Bonilla and Hueso. The clerk will read.
Alfred Urquieta is a junior at Herbert Hoover High School in San Diego. He joined the school's Gay Straight Alliance in his junior year. Alfred spoke in front of the school board on the issue of inclusion of sexual orientation in the school's anti-bullying policy. He is proud that the district adopted the anti-bullying policy. Alfred and other Gay Straight Alliance members sponsored a day of silence in which 500 student participants were silent in support of LGBT rights and to live and love free of harassment. Welcome, Alfred Urquieta.
Our third honoree is Captain Robert Dockendorf. He will be escorted by Assembly members Hill and Yamada. Clerk will read.
Captain Robert Dockendorf is a retired Navy veteran who also served in Vietnam. In his home state of Iowa, Bob established a scholarship at the University of Iowa, which provides financial assistance to LGBT students. Over the decades, he has been a member of or officer of several organizations and boards, including the Society for Individual Rights, the Cable Car Awards, and the Harvey Milk LGBT Democratic Club. The latter had a groundbreaking Can We Talk prevention program for an illness that later called AIDS. Welcome, Robert Dockendorf.
Our fourth honoree is Mr. Nicole Murray Ramirez. He will be escorted by Assembly members Atkins and Pan. Clerk will read.
Mr. Nicole Murray Ramirez has been a Latino and gay activist for well over 45 years. He is currently a city commissioner with the San Diego Human Department of Relations, continually reappointed by the last 5 mayors of the city, a board member of the Harvey Milk Foundation, and chairman of the International Court Council of the United States, Canada, and Mexico. He is past chair, board member of Equality California, the Human Rights Campaign, and the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force. Please welcome Nicole Murray Ramirez.
Our sixth honoree is Mr. Yeet Pura. He will be escorted by Senator Leno and Assembly member Brownlee. Clerk will read.
Yeet Pura is the first winner of Bravo TV's Top Chef, Just Desserts. In his hometown of Ankara, Turkey, 4-year-old Yeet joined his mother in making dark caramels and began a lifelong love of creating desserts to the benefit of San Francisco's who enjoy his culinary creations today. He led and trained in top kitchens in California, New York, and Las Vegas, including the highly prestigious locales Le Cirque, the Four Seasons, and Daniel. Upon his return to San Francisco, he had been active in the Gay Era Youth Summit, the GLAAD Media Awards, and the It Gets Better campaign, and similar efforts to combat negative stereotypes and support LGBT youth to help others escape the bullying he experienced. Welcome, Yeet Pura.
Our seventh honoree is Judith Rickard. She will be escorted by Assembly members Gordon and Mitchell. Clerk will read.
Judith Rickard has promoted civil rights and LGBT rights for nearly 40 years. She has done this as a board member of her local LGBT Political Action Committee, a voter who has promoted LGBT candidates and officials, and a person who educated leaders allied with the LGBT community on LGBT issues. Late in life, Judy, as a U.S. citizen, met and fell in love with Karen, a non-U.S. citizen. The legal barriers preventing them from carrying out their relationship galvanized Judy to author Torn Apart, United by Love, Divided by Law, a moving political and personal story of immigration and love. Welcome, Judy Rickard.
Our eighth and final honoree is Valerie Spencer. She will be escorted by Assembly members Torres, Swanson, Lara, and Galgiani. Clerk will read.
Valerie Spencer describes herself as being a woman from birth, but discovering that just a little bit later. For nearly 2 decades, she has worked in the area of HIV prevention and services delivery for transgendered persons. She is developing the Transcend Empowerment Institute to address empowerment on social, cultural, and holistic basis. She also authored LA County's first curriculum addressing transgenderism from the perspective of a person of color. Valerie co-starred in an all-trans women cast of the Vagina Monologues and the documentary Beautiful Daughters, which aired on the Logo and Showtime television networks. Welcome, Valerie Spencer.
On behalf of the LGBT Legislative Caucus, I thank our honorees and other guests and my colleagues for their participating in the annual Pride Month ceremony. Please join us for a reception in the Willie Brown Conference Room, which will begin shortly. This concludes our ceremony. Business on the daily file, second reading. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 751 with amendments, 264 with amendments, 24 with amendments, 303 with amendments, 508 with amendments, and Senate Bill 805 with amendments.
All bills will be deemed read and amendments deemed adopted. Okay, Assembly third reading. Assembly third reading, file item 15, ACR 60. Clerk will read.
The Assembly concur on Resolution 60 by Assembly Member V. Manuel Perez and others relative to the Korean War Armistice Day.
Mr. Perez.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. ACR 160 is a non-controversial resolution celebrating the courageous contributions of those who fought against communism in the Korean War. On June 27, 1950, President Truman committed American soldiers, many of whom were from California, to combat in South Korea against the communist North Korean forces who invaded South Korea. Due to the courage, strength, and persistence of American troops and their allies, troops were able to remain strong in battle until an armistice agreement was signed on July 27, 1953. ACR 60 recognizes Korean War veterans and their efforts by designating July 27, 2011 as Korean War Armistice Day. This resolution instructs all State Departments, agencies, interested groups, organizations, and individuals to fly the United States flag at half-mast on July 27, 2011, in memory of the veterans who died as a result of their service in Korea. I would also like to recognize individuals from the Korean War Veterans Association number 165 in El Centro, California, who brought this resolution to my attention, including Francisco J. Pacheco, Mike Mendoza, and J. Reclosado Jr. Madam Speaker, I'd like the first row to be open for co-authors. And I ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Davis.
Speaker and members, I rise in support of ACR 60 as the son of a Korean War veteran, and also to specifically say that the Legislative Black Caucus members are strongly in support of honoring our veterans, and we also say this is a great resolution for an aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, Mr. Perez would like the first roll to be open for co-authors. Clerk will open the roll. This is for co-authors, members. Co-authors, all members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. For the record, there are 58 co-authors. We could take a voice vote on this item. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The measure is adopted. File item 17, AJR 13. Clerk will read.
Assembly Joint Resolution 13 by Assemblymember Lara and others relative to health care.
Mr. Lara.
Madam Speaker and members, thank you. It is well documented that our nation and our state faces a crisis with regard to our physician workforce. In fact, it is estimated that by 2015, California will experience a physician shortage of 17,000. A lack of medical residency slots available in California, as well as extremely high debt medical students incur while attending medical school, add to our problem. AJR 13 urges the President and Congress to provide more resources to increase the supply of physicians in California and to consider solutions to increase the number of graduate medical education residency positions available in our state. The resolution also encourages the President and Congress to consider solutions that would increase the number of graduate medical education and residency slots so that we can keep pace with the growing need for physicians in California and the United States. This resolution received bipartisan support in the Assembly Health Committee last week. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 55, noes 6. Measure passes. File item, Senate third reading, file item 19, SCR 12. Clerk will read.
Senate concur Resolution 12 by Senator Liu relative to taxation.
Ms. Lowenthal.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This resolution urges state and local governments and community organizations to raise awareness of the Earned Income Tax Credit, or EITC, in order to help working families persevere through difficult economic times. The EITC is a refundable tax credit designed to relieve the financial burden on low-income working families and to stimulate the economy. Unfortunately, over $1 billion goes unclaimed every year. In these difficult times, it's more important than ever to seize opportunities to help working Californians. This resolution is one step to increase utilization of the EITC, and I urge your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. Actually, we could take a voice vote on this item. Sorry, members. If that's okay without objection? We'll strike the roll. We can take a voice vote on this item. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The measure is adopted. Okay, we're going to go back to concurrence item File Item 7, AB 176. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 176 by Assemblymember Lara, an act relating to post-secondary education.
Mr. Lara.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, AB 176 is back for concurrence and Senate amendments. The bill requires test sponsors of graduate-level standardized exams to provide a process for verifying a student's identity when they cannot provide required forms of or government-issued ID. The amendments taken in the Senate include the word registration in order to correct Legislative Council technical drafting error, and would require the test sponsor to post information regarding the availability of the alternative processes for verification of identification clearly on their websites. The bill has no opposition and has received bipartisan support both in the Assembly and the Senate. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Donnelly.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, members. You know, I understand the intent of the bill, and I'm in favor of students that are underage being able to use some form of ID, but I think this bill goes too far. And I think what it does essentially is support the whole concept of AB 540, which we've debated here many, many times, so I won't go into it. But the concept of being able to use a foreign type of identification or accepting any types of identification to take tests, my chief concern is that if you'll all remember back to 9/11, as the story began to unravel, we all learned that there were folks who came in from out of the country who had false identification and who were able to get into a flight school, and eventually they were able to do tremendous damage to our country. So I think we need to be careful in balancing the needs of kids who are 15, 16 years old who want to take a test, and I have one, with the need for security and with upholding the rule of law in this country. So I'm going to urge a no vote on this version of the bill because I think it's too open-ended. I would support something that had tighter amendments that would narrow down the types of ID that could be acceptable so that we have something that we can understand rather than just an open-ended version. So I urge a no vote. Thank you.
Mr. Cedillo.
On the other hand, I urge an aye vote, and I do so for, in many respects, the same arguments that were raised. We need some form of identification. These are the best available. With respect to the rule of law, we've argued this on the DREAM Act. The rule of law is well established in a whole range of court cases that we began with Mendes versus Westminster, Plyler, Proposition 187, AB 540, all cases judged for the U.S. Supreme Court indicating that we have a legal obligation to these students. Implicit in that is that since we do have a legal obligation, that then we have an obligation to facilitate that process and do so in the most prudent, responsible, and legal manner. And the way to do that would be, as this bill suggests, is provide and recognize other forms of identification. I urge an aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, Mr. Lara, you may close.
Thank you. I appreciate the comments. Know that this bill simply asks the test sponsors to work with the students to provide a process by which they can take these exams. We're not mandating the type of IDs that they need. We are just saying that these test sponsors need to have a process for AB 540 students so that they can continue with their education. That's all we're trying. We're trying to educate California students and ensuring that they can pursue their dreams. So I respectfully ask for your aye vote. Thank you.
Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 50, noes 10. Senate amendments are concurred in. Okay, we are at the consent calendar. We are at the second day consent calendar. Does any member wish to remove an item from the second day consent calendar? Seeing and hearing none, clerk will read.
Assembly concur Resolution 53 by Assemblymember Roger Hernandez relative to perinatal depression prevention.
Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 70, noes 0.
Senate Bill 190.
I-70-0.
Senate Bill 284.
I-70-0.
Senate Bill 731.
I-70-0.
Senate Bill 837.
I-70-0.
And Senate Bill 208 with urge.
I-70-0 on the urgency. I-70-0 on the measure. Okay, the consent calendar is adopted. Session schedule is as follows. Tuesday, June 20th, check-in session. Wednesday, June 21st, check-in session. Thursday, June 22nd, floor session at 9 a.m. All other items remaining will be passed and retained. All motions shall be continued. I have no adjourned in memories today, so I am ready to entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Allen moves. Ms. Conway seconds that this House stands adjourned until Thursday, June 23rd at 9 a.m. Quorum call is lifted.